Welcome back. This is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today we're going to be doing this super easy abstract Halloween tumbler. As always, I'll make sure to put everything that I used today into the description box below, so that way you guys can shop those items if you would like to. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. I am working with a double-walled stainless steel coffee mug tumbler today. This is a 16-ounce STEMI that I purchased through the Stainless Depot company. I went ahead and I've already prepped and primed my tumbler, and now we're going to jump right into getting it glittered. So I am using a fine glitter today, and I have 5 mLs of epoxy mixed up here. You just need a very, very tiny amount. I'm not even going to be using all this 5 ml. I'm just going to be using a couple dabs of my finger actually from that. So you don't even need this much. So all I'm going to do is take a very small amount of my epoxy, spread that around. I mean, I'm really having to force it with my hand. That's all you want to do. The reason why we want such a thin amount of epoxy when doing it this way is so that way our fine glitter doesn't accidentally lay down too flat and cause slick spots in our glitter. Now, when I use chunky glitter, it's obviously different. I do use a little bit more, but when using just fine glitter, I make sure very, very small amount. And of course, if you don't want to do it with the epoxy method, go ahead and use your glue. There is no right or wrong when it comes to making art. Now all I want to do is just completely load up my tumbler with the glitter that I chose. The glitter that I'm using today is called Sarah, and you can find that at sscglitters.com if you would like to purchase this glitter, but if not, it's completely fine as well. And you just want to load up that tumbler with whatever glitter you have on hand. Now, after I get my tumbler fully loaded with my glitter here, I'm going to make sure that I tap off any extra glitters that might just not have adhered down to the epoxy. So I just kind of give it a little tap on my table. That's just how I've always done it, but however you guys like to get your glitter off. And then you're going to set that off to the side and let that cure. I'm going to let that cure because I believe I use my fast set. So I'm going to let that sit for about 2 to 3 hours. And then I'm going to come back and add the flood coat over top of our raw glitter. So that is nice and cured, and we're ready for that flood coat. Now I'm going to be applying about 15 to 20 mLs for this first initial coating over the raw glitter because it needs a little bit more, because I typically like to work in smaller layers. But this first layer over the raw glitter, you definitely want to be able to cover it as much as possible. So 15 to 20 was perfect for the size tumbler that I'm using here. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. I'm going to stick it on my turner. Make sure that I hit it up really good with my blowtorch, and then I'm going to let that cure, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, my flood coat is all cured, and we're ready to start giving it its first sanding. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it from my wand. I'm going to take something very sharp and make sure I come around the rim and clean up my rim really good. I like to do that as I go. It just makes it a lot easier. And then I'm going to come through with my sanding block. I think I used a 60. You can use 60 or 80, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to come through and just really sand down my rim really well, and just kind of sand down any points that might be on my tumbler as well. So then I'm just going to take some rubbing alcohol, kind of spritz it on there, wipe off any little debris, and it'll be ready to add another coat of epoxy over top of this because we want it nice and smooth for that peekaboo we're going to be doing. All right, so we're ready to add another coat of epoxy over top here, and I am going to be doing just 10 mLs of epoxy over top. So pretty much any layer I do after this will be all 10 mLs of epoxy, especially because we're working with a handle and I don't want it to get all glooped up around the handle, and that really helps that out. So 10 mLs, and that's going to really help out with any micro bubbles or pooling around the bottom or pooling around the handle. I'm going to set that on my turner and let that cure, and then be ready to move on to the next step. I found these super cute spider webs on Creative Fabrica. I'll put that information in the description box below, but these spider webs are so cute, very delicate. That's exactly what I wanted for this project. I set it to about 3 inches in height and width. I thought that was really good for the design that I wanted to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these cut out on some semi-permanent vinyl and be ready to do that peekaboo. All right, we're back. We have a very smooth tumbler and we're ready to do our peekaboo. So the first thing I'm gonna do is start doing my abstract kind of blocking look, and I just have some 1-inch painter's tape, and you just want to come through and do very abstract lines. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. It doesn't matter which way they go. It doesn't matter if they're completely up and down. You just want them kind of every which way. I'm just making sure that whatever lines I do that I want to go from the top to the bottom, completely go from the top to the bottom. There's no like weird ending points. I make sure it goes completely down to the bottom. And then any little lines that are coming off of another piece of tape, I make sure that it connects over so that way, like I said, there's no abrupt ending lines with your tape. And as you can see, I'm starting the process of kind of taping off my handle as well because I don't want any paint on my handle or my bottom, but wherever your imagination takes you with this, just let it take you there. It doesn't matter if you want to do the bottom and the handles, then do the bottom and the handles. You know, it's completely up to you. That's the great thing about art. You could even use numerous different sizes of tape. You could get some washi tape. You could use some of your pinstriping tape to kind of go in there, just all kinds of different size lines. I think that would be pretty awesome as well. All right, my tape is all put down and I just made sure I went through and I rubbed down those edges really well so no paint kind of seeps up under there. Now I'm gonna show you guys, I know they're really delicate, but it was really easy to just pull right off instead of having to sit there and weed everything, just pull them off. You're using it for a peekaboo anyway, so I'm just gonna pull off these spider webs and I'm just gonna very randomly place them around. And of course, just like with our tape, I'm just going to make sure that I press it down really good, making sure that, you know, no paint will get up underneath my decals here. Now, after I got going and applying my spider webs just randomly around, I did end up having to cut one in half, and I didn't want, just like with our tape, I didn't want a weird, abrupt ending line. So I'm going to be showing you guys here in a second what I did to kind of help that situation out. But as you guys see, some of them are fully in the areas that are going to be painted. Some are going to be like halfway in between the tape on each side of areas that are going to be painted. So again, it doesn't have to be perfectly on each little area that's going to be painted, just real randomly. And I don't know why, now that I'm watching it, it almost looks like a mummy with the tape and the spider webs on. I don't know. So here I didn't want to put a full one down and I still needed another little piece of the spider web for over there. So I just cut it in half. And again, just like with our tape, we don't want an abrupt line. So I'm going to line up the bottom or the middle there where I cut and just line it up along the bottom of my tumbler right there because I'm not going to be painting the bottom. And then I just took this other piece and just made sure that the cut piece was in the tape line so that way you couldn't see that abrupt ending. And now we're ready to go outside and start spray painting. First color I'm going to be using is called this Dreamy Lavender. I really like this, very pretty color, and that's going to be my main base color. So I'm just going to pick up my tumbler. You see I taped off my handle and I did tape off my bottom a little bit as well. I'm just going to test out my paint, make sure it's not going to spray all weird on me. I always do a test spray, and then I'm just going to really load this up with my paint. I mean, not load up, but just a real short, quick burst to make sure that you don't get any little drips and stuff on there. And then right after this, I'm not going to let this dry. I'm going to move right on to the second paint color that I'm going to be using. I'm going to be doing like this little speckle look. And the next one I'm going to be using is called Magenta, and that's by Rustoleum as well. And I'm going to show you guys how I do my little speckles. So all I do is just shake my can. You want to shake, you want to prime your can. And what I do is I hold it down till there is a stream coming out, and then I just slowly start letting go of my nozzle there until these little speckles just come out. You see I have my tumbler on hand ready to go. You don't want to accidentally spritz it with a big plume of your paint, but just doing that one burst and then just slowly letting the nozzle go until it does this pattern on your tumbler. And I'm just going to load this up really good. And again, one more time, I did not let that Dreamy Lavender dry. I moved right into doing my speckling. So we're going to be doing all the spray painting as it's still wet on top of each other. So after I got looking at it, I just felt like it needed just a little bit more color to it. So I decided to go with something that kind of, there's a little hints of green in the glitter that I use. So I decided to use some fluorescent green spray paint to kind of go with that. So fluorescent paints can be kind of picky, you know, so again, make sure that you shake really well. Shake till you hear that ball. Sometimes you have to shake for up to 3 minutes just to make sure everything's real mixed. Do a couple spritzes, and we're just gonna do the same thing where we just very lightly hold down that nozzle. And this was more like I did some burst, and I also did some little speckling. So, you know, again, wherever your imagination takes you. But if you see, so I don't accidentally get too many big bursts of it, I'm actually holding the tumbler right under the stream and I'll just kind of bring it up into the stream. So that's how I do that. I'm gonna go ahead and let that dry, and then we're gonna start removing that tape. So after I start peeling everything back, you just want to make sure that you get all those little spiderweb pieces out of there. It's so, like I said, it's so small and delicate. You want to make sure you get all those little pieces out of there. But it was pretty easy to just peel right off, and it definitely is starting to have that look that I am going for here. Now to finish it off, I'm gonna go ahead and add some pinstriping. I have this nail tape that I have here. It's like a magenta nail tape. And because there's big open spots where I can lay down my tape, I'm gonna go ahead and lay that tape down right into the epoxied area, because usually I don't do my pinstriping over paint, but since there's enough area to be able to lay my pinstriping down and it's on the epoxy itself, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. The reason why I like to make sure it has a nice epoxy surface from this type of pinstriping is because that paint will make it lift, and then you put your epoxy on it, you come back the next day and your pinstriping is all lifted. So, but this is going again right on that epoxied surface. And I'm not fully putting this pinstriping completely around each painted block. I'm just doing 1 to 2 sides of each painted block. I just felt like it really kind of gave more to that abstract look that I was going for. Now, after my pinstriping is all done here, I'm gonna go ahead and take it and give it a good coating of my 2x Ultra. I like to do this in between all my layers, and this just really helps out with that epoxy, giving that epoxy something to adhere to, because sometimes it'll wanna wick away off the paints or the glitter, and that's really gonna help it out and give the epoxy something to grip to. So I'm going to give it another 10 mLs of epoxy, let that cure. At that time, you can go ahead and apply any decals you would like, and then go ahead and give it another coat or 2 of epoxy to finish it up, and it is ready to go. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.